Hello, I'm Charles Rogers and welcome to Blytheco LLC's ATC Online. Today we will begin to explore processing transactions in the General Ledger module. The General Journal Entry, Recurring Journal Entry, and Transaction Journal Entry are the three methods that are used to enter transactions in the General Ledger module. However, before we begin, and we will start with the General Journal Entry, before we begin, we will actually go into the General Ledger setup options because there are a couple of questions that we need to consider, a couple of options that we need to explore that will affect what we are doing. First, notice that we have the option of enabling or disabling data entry batch processing for both General Journal Entry and Transaction Journal Entry. We've enabled this feature for the General Journal Entry, and this allows our users to actually enter transactions in multiple data entry or independent data entry batches, as well as update those entries and journals independently of each other. We also have the ability to reset our journal numbers automatically, either doing year-end processing, period-end processing. I generally like to never have these things reset. I almost never have these journal entries reset at the end of the period for the simple fact to avoid confusion. If you reset a journal at the end of period-end processing, of course you will eventually, during the course of a year, close 12 periods, and guess how many journal entry 3s, for example, you have at the end of the year? You have 12 journal entry 3s. And in an audit situation 4 or 5 years down the road, when I go back and the auditor asks for journal entry 3, then of course that's when confusion sets in, and I think that's totally probably not necessary. So in most cases, in most business process flows, either at the very least year-end processing would be used, but I probably think never reset is a little bit better. We don't have to deal with resetting register numbers. Of course, we know that registers are source journals that originate from other modules, and we won't be discussing those today. We are going to choose to track deleted journals. So even though we may cancel or delete a journal entry, that number will still be kept in history. So when we look back on this, sometime from now, we won't have journal entry 15, 16, and 18. And everybody's scratching their head wondering where journal 17 went. We're going to simply go in and accept this, and we're pretty much set to go. So let's go over to the main menu and open up General Journal Entry. Because we have chosen to enable data entry batches, the first screen that we see for General Journal Entry is the General Journal Entry batch window. We're going to simply go in and take the next available number. We can place any comment here, and we can indicate whether this batch is going to be private or not. Indicating a batch is private means that only I can access it, or another user with the proper security event override privileges associated with their security role. The statuses, of course, can be available, in use, or in the process of being printed and or updated. This batch window will keep track of the number of entries in that data entry session, who created this data entry session and when, who last modified this data entry session and when, as well as the total debits and credits of the aggregate entries that are being executed in this particular data entry session. So let's go in and accept this. Notice we can see that we're currently in batch 2, and the first thing that we have to do is enter a source. There are two lookup icons. One of these icons looks up our existing source codes. We can create a source code on the fly if we so desire, and once we get enough entries in, start putting entries in, we can actually look up existing entries with the searchlight or the flashlight icon. We are going to choose the very general journal entry source journal, and we're going to take the next automatic journal entry number. On the header, there's really not a whole lot to do. We can put in the date that we want this entry to be posted. We're going to accept the default date that's actually being pulled from my general ledger module date that was set when I initially went into the general ledger module. We're going to talk about reversing dates when we talk about more complex transactions, and we can actually put in a comment, and it might be noted that this comment field can contain up to 2048 characters. Okay, and it's also the default journal comment for our individual detail posting lines. Speaking of the lines, let's go over to our lines and take a look around. Notice that the layout is a traditional MAS 90 version 4.x architecture data entry screen with a primary grid and a secondary grid. Makes it very easy to do data entry. The fields can actually be dragged and dropped between those two grids to make this customizable, and that is customizable and save with the user code, so that will follow you around if you work on multiple terminals around your office. And the basic data entry, and we're going to look at some of the other icons a little bit later, but some of the basic data entry is, of course, to look up the account number, and we can access this. Let me give you a really cool shortcut. F2 is a shortcut to look up here. F4 in this data entry screen will actually look up a descriptive name, and that works for customers and vendors and inventory items and the like. So once I press F4, notice my description, notice my cursor is here. So if I actually want to look up an account that began with pre, let's say for example, I could actually search by the descriptive name as opposed to the number. That's just a quick note for you, something that maybe help you speed up your day. So we're going to actually go in and select an account. We're going to select the cash on hand account, as we can actually see by the description below, and we're going to put in a number, and we're going to put in $135, and we're going to enter right through to the second account number. We're going to do a lookup with the F2 key. We're going to actually go and select general checking, and we're going to move cash out of this account. And yes, I know I typed $125. Notice that the net balance is $10. My debits and credits are not equal. So as I move to accept this entry, I am warned that the journal entry is out of balance by a $10 debit balance, and heavy on the debit side, that is, and the entry must be in balance in order to post to the general ledger. And normally we're given three choices: to correct this, to delete this, or to temporarily accept this. Because I've given myself full supervisory event clearance privileges in my security role, I'm presented with a fourth choice, which is 1. And 1 allows me to accept this journal entry as is and update it to the ledger. You should never, I repeat, never do this in a normal accounting, as a normal accounting practice. There are no such things as out of balance journal entries in accounting. The one side journal entry is generally used to correct some technical glitch, some corruption of data files that is for some reason, some technical reason or the like, cause your journal, or for some rounding reason or something like that, have caused your journal entry to actually be out of balance. So temporarily, we're going to accept this, knowing that we will never be able to update. Let me just demonstrate. If I go in and try to update this entry, maybe getting just a little bit ahead of myself, but I want you to see this in full, and I am going to preview what we see here. Notice that we are out of balance by $10, and if I go in and try to update it, it's going to tell me that an error has occurred, ask me to print a log. If I print that log, I'm going to be told that I cannot update this because I'm out of balance by $10. Okay, so we have to go back in and correct it, which gives us an opportunity to go back in and do some other interesting things. First, I am led back to my batch window. I am now going to select an existing batch and accept it. Notice my debits and credits are out of balance. If I go in and verify that, I know that the verification is complete. No changes were made to the batch. Notice that my created by and modified fields are updated. I can actually go in and renumber this batch. And if I had another batch, I could actually merge this batch into a destination batch. We're going to accept the existing batch. We're going to go now and fish for our entry, and we're going to go over to the lines. Okay, let's look around a little bit further. Notice that for every monetary entry, I have the ability of accessing an embedded calculator, which is a very, very neat feature when the entry you're entering is a result of some type of calculation. Notice that my comment, of which only the first 20 characters of the comment, and incidentally, if you had a general ledger account number that was longer than 20 characters, by default, without resizing the size of the field, only the first 20 characters by default will actually show. The comment is the default comment that we entered back on the header. It can be modified. As I just did in the on the line 1 comment, and we can actually go and see that later as we go into update. Now, I am not a big fan of having you memorize what these buttons are. The button to actually go in and insert a row, to delete a row, to move a row up, to move a row down, to reset this row, to reset all rows and the like. I'm a big fan of actually coming over and just simply right click. I have a simple rule: when in doubt, right click. And you notice that you see all of the buttons that are displayed over the right, plus some, and you have the description right next to them, so you don't even really have to wonder nor hover over the button and wait for the button to reveal itself. And once you become familiar with what those buttons are, then feel free to have quick access to them. The main reason that we are here, though, is because we are not in balance. We have a $10 discrepancy between our debits and our credits. We can actually simply go in and correct that. After doing some research, we find out that account 102 should have been credited for $135. We can actually go in and do a little research. We can manually enter that, but let me show you something that's really neat. The net balance button, which is incidentally is not on this right click option here, but the net balance button can be utilized to force the amount on the currently highlighted line to be changed to an amount that will place or make this entry become a balanced one. If I were to enter another line, and I'm just grabbing an account and select net balance, it's going to force that line to be a number and debit credit orientation that forces this entry to be in balance. So all we have to do is come in and simply highlight the line containing the credit for account 102, and we have a net balance situation that forces this into balance, and voila, there we are. Let's accept this entry, and we'll continue in our next lesson with more complex journal entries as well as updating. But for now, I'm Charles Rogers, and thank you for visiting Blytheco LLC's ATC Online.